Hello and welcome all to the Lightpath Virtual Lunch and Learn. Today's topic is fiber network density and diversity, the foundation of a resilient high-performance network. Now, I realize this is probably over many people's lunch break, certainly on the East Coast. So we try to keep these lunch and learns brief. Today's session will be about 30 minutes, including 5 to 10 minutes that we'll reserve for question and answers. And by the way, if you have questions, there is a Q&A tab, I believe, or a button. And we'll try and get to a number of those questions today. But if we don't get to your questions today, we'll have someone reach out to you if a response is requested. So again, please use the Q&A tab down there, and we'll try and get to as many as we can today. I'll also mention that I am in a remote location today, ironically, without the benefit of a fiber-based connection. I know that is very my video may freeze a little bit. It's kind of the world we live in now. But hopefully my audio will be clear, as it has been in earlier meetings. All right, so let's dive into it here. The speakers today are myself, Phil Olivero. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Lightpath. I have the product, engineering, and IT teams, and I'm an old guy, so I've been in the industry for 33 years. My colleague, Massimo Cardarelli, is the Vice President of our outside plant group, building our fiber, basically fiber construction and maintenance, and he also runs the sales engineering team. All right, so that's who's speaking. So as we get into this now, I thought it would be probably good to do a quick refresher on who Lightpath is, as some may have known us in the past, but there have definitely been a lot of changes in the last 18 months. So I think it's worth reviewing again kind of who we are. So Lightpath is one of the leading fiber-based competitive, i.e. not incumbent, infrastructure providers or connectivity providers. We operate in the New York metro area, so New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, and now Massachusetts. And our customers are small, medium, and larger enterprises or businesses, and not the residential or very small businesses. So again, small, medium, larger enterprises or businesses. We have 20,000 plus route miles of fiber in this geography. And along these routes of 20,000 miles of fiber, we've brought fiber into 13,500 on-net locations to serve customers, including 2,000 wireless cell sites, 75 data centers, and 7 submarine cable landing stations, which I'll talk about in a sec here too. It's basically where the subsea cables that come from Europe or Asia, mostly in our case, Europe, some South America as well, but where they come on shore and where they need to be connected to the terrestrial network. So I guess, from that yellow box, we've got a very dense fiber footprint in a relatively small geography. So on this fiber network, in the white box on the bottom left there, if you can read it, I know it's a little small. On this fiber network, we offer a full suite of connectivity products, including dark fiber, optical transport services, or some people call them wavelengths, switched Ethernet, IP or internet services, UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service, kind of the newer voice services, IP-based services, sometimes on a soft phone, on your laptop. Sometimes, people are still using good old desk phones, but we offer, again, the full suite of voice products. And we also offer public cloud on-ramp connections. So if you're using Amazon Web Services or Azure, as most businesses are, or many businesses are, and increasingly a lot of other businesses are, we offer a direct, dedicated connections to those cloud services, and we offer managed security services as well. We upgraded our optical core to a Sienna ROADM network, which is currently capable of carrying up to 42 800 gig waves, or 33.6 terabits per second on a pair of fibers. And our 450 employees that we have provide local sales, operations, and support in these markets that we serve. On the and you can see in the little map, which we'll go into a little bit more detail, the electric yellow there, our color, kind of illustrates the fiber that we have in these markets. So it's a relatively small geography, but in the top right box there, you can see there's a large addressable market of customers of about $3.3 billion worth of connectivity and fiber services. So on this network, and with considerable effort that we've built and the investment that we'll talk about, we're set to double our sales in 2022 versus 2020. So a lot of demand in that geography, in our geography, and a lot of network that we have to support that demand. And it's really turning into a lot of great sales for us. So one last thing on our one last slide on our the background of who Lightpath is. I mentioned there have been a lot of changes at Lightpath over the last 18 months. And this is kind of a busy slide, so I won't go through everything here, but just a couple of key points to take out of this for today's discussion. First, Lightpath has been around for over 30 years. It was first created, that's the far left gray box there. It was first created by the incumbent cable provider in these areas, Cablevision, if you knew that name. And Lightpath was created out of Cablevision in 1988. So again, the fiber network's been around for a while and been added to over many years. But then 6 years ago, in 2016, the next gray box, Altice, French-based or France-located cable company, acquired Cablevision, including Lightpath, as well as other cable providers across the U.S. But their focus was, and still is, on residential and small and medium-sized businesses, and selling them TV and broadband internet and mobile services. So in 2020, the next box, the first electric yellow box there. So in 2020, they brought in an investor partner, Morgan Stanley, to help manage and grow Lightpath, i.e. the part of the business that's focused on selling connectivity to businesses and enterprises, as I mentioned, as opposed to what they were focused on, which is more the residential and small business side. So Morgan Stanley recruited a new management team, which was brought in the first quarter of 2021. It was comprised of industry veterans who had at other companies in this space, like Zayo and Light Tower, including Massimo and myself, who came in with that new management team. And they gave us a new mandate, really, to leverage and build upon the great foundation that had been established over the last 30 years to serve more places, more customers in more places, and to really drive growth. So I'll expand on some of the middle boxes. So again, I'm not going to go through every box here because I'm going to expand on some of the middle boxes, which really speak to our expansion activities and how we built out that dense and diverse fiber network. But I'm going to close this slide saying the good news is, as I mentioned in the slide before, we're starting to see those investments in our network start to pay off with tremendous growth in sales bookings over the last 2 quarters. All right, so that's the quick refresher on who Lightpath is. Let's start talking now about the network. As I mentioned, we have a dense and unique fiber infrastructure in our markets. I've talked about the density, 20,000 route miles in a pretty small geography. That's a lot of miles. It's also unique, though, in that it was placed along cable, again, cable TV rights of way. And some of our network equipment, maybe commonly known as in the telecom industry, and the equipment with providers. And I'm hearing that I might be cutting out. I'm going to pause just for a sec. Hopefully, Kaylee, my producer that you can't see or hear, will give me a thumbs up that you can hear better. Okay, thumbs up I've got. All right, sorry about that. So again, I was saying, the fiber network that we have is not only dense, but it's unique because it has been placed along the cable TV right of way, and some of our equipment, network equipment, is in space in cable TV head ends, which again is different than the routing and hubs that you see with typical telecom providers. So as a result, we can offer more routes and uniquely diverse routes than you'll see with typical telecom providers. So as I mentioned, though, we have a mandate. We were given a growth mandate when we came in Q1 21. And I think I may be freezing again. Hopefully not. But we've been expanding to places where, to many places where the cable right of way was not. So as much as Cablevision and Altice before might have served an area, and then didn't serve an adjacent area like Queens in the top left, we've looked at that and said, hey, this is an opportunity for growth. And so, some examples of some of the expansions we've done is Queens in the top left, Princeton in the top right. And we've also added diverse or alternate fiber routes, like over the Mario-Cuomo Bridge that connects Rockland and Westchester counties. So Queens in the top left, you may not be able to make it out. It's kind of small, but in Manhattan, if you know the geography, you'll see lots of our yellow fiber lines. Queen, great opportunity. We have lots of customers who have locations there that aren't being served. We've announced and are working on, and Massimo and team are working on 2 expansions into Queens. And you'll see the blue one was our first phase and the red one our second phase, driven by customer requirements. Still cutting out. Boy, having a little tougher time with the connectivity here. Kaylee, give me the thumbs up, please, when we can hear me again. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Again, in a pretty remote location, I guess. More remote than I thought. So again, we expanded into Queens. We've got 2 fiber expansions that we're working on actively. We've done the same in Princeton. And our goal, basically, in these areas is to have the same density and diversity of routes that you see in our other markets. Boston is, I mentioned, was a newer market that we're serving. Well, Boston is an example of where we've expanded our fiber network to new places. Again, the cable TV parent, our cable TV parent, has no operations in Boston, but we started our market entrance in June of 2021 with a couple of acquisitions that delivered, and that's kind of where we are on the map there. Those 2 acquisitions delivered about 80 miles of fiber and conduit. But again, we want to build a density and diversity of routes. So we quickly followed that with expansions in the top right in November of 2021. And most recently of March of 2022 this year. And I'm sure there'll be more driven by customer. The other key driver of our fiber extensions and expansions is wireless demand. Wireless company 5G buildouts are driving the need for new cell sites and or more bandwidth at existing cell sites. And as a result, just in 2021, we've been awarded 1,000 new sites that further expands our network, offers all customers more fiber services and routes in more places. So i.e., as we're building fiber to these new cell sites, i.e. new buildings where the cell sites are on top of, in the New York area anyway, not a lot of towers necessarily in our geography, but also along the newly built fiber routes, we pass by buildings that, again, open up more fiber services in more places to more customers. So while I've been showing you so far some nice maps with what looks like dense and diverse fiber routes, here's how it stacks up in numbers. So basically on the left are 18,000 fiber miles in the New York metro area. I mentioned we have 20,000 overall, but just if we focus on the New York metro area for now, we've got 18,000 just in the New York metro area. And also, if you do the math, I'm going to give you some different math, but we have about 4 on-net locations for every 5 miles of fiber, which is on the right, the 0.74 service locations per route mile. I think it's harder for people to think about 3/4 of a site. And so, again, we've got a lot of fiber. And when you think about now relative to the alternative providers that I've shown, again, both in terms of route miles in the New York metro area or the number of on-net buildings or locations they have per route miles, again, it's one of the most extensive fiber networks across this region outside of the incumbent phone company who doesn't publish their maps. Again, it's definitely a deep, dense, diverse fiber network. So that's all nice, Phil. You've told us that you have a dense and diverse fiber network at Lightpath, but the important part is, what does that mean for customers, for you? Well, we believe Lightpath's dense fiber network, with a diversity of routes available, really offers many customer benefits. On the left-hand side, a more extensive network really means that our services are available to more customers in our fiber buildings, or there are shorter paths for us to build to reach you. We've also empowered our sales teams with programs with pre-approved limits and approvals to extend that network. To nearby buildings without requiring extra approval steps from finance or folks like me, slowing down the process. So that translates really into faster quoting. And again, because these are typically shorter, either builds or already on net, also importantly, faster install times. Certainly our on-net intervals, are very quick, and our off-net intervals, again, being shorter builds, translates to faster install times for you. And, even if the extensions to get to some buildings are more lengthy or costly or complex, if they go beyond those pre-approved fiber extension programs, as I mentioned before, we have a willingness and financial ability to expand our network, for the example I showed earlier. So bottom line, really, on the left-hand white box there, we have more services available in more areas more quickly as a result of having, a lot of fiber in this area. On the right, an extensive fiber network also helps provide more path options between customer locations. First of all, it's fiber, so it's essentially unlimited capacity and upgradability. I mentioned our current capacity right now on a fiber pair with our ROADM network is 33.6 terabits per second, but that's current. They're constantly evolving that to provide more capacity on fiber. But second, customer applications require not only increasing bandwidth capacities, but many also have specific tolerances for latency or special diversity requirements or demanding availability and resilience that might need multiple routes. So having lots of unique routes, and as I mentioned earlier, unique equipment for customers to place their gear or for us to place our gear, like we do, at least in part because of our cable co-parent, means that we have more fiber routing options to meet demanding customer performance requirements. So this all sounds good theoretically, but we also wanted to show you some real-life examples of how we used and applied our dense and diverse fiber network, as well as our optical, Ethernet, and IP core networks to meet real-life customer needs. So here to cover that is, again, my colleague, Massimo Cardarelli. Massimo, over to you.
Thank you, Phil. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Massimo Cardarelli. As Phil mentioned, I'm the VP of Outside Plant Construction and Pre-Sales Engineering here at Lightpath. And I'm going to be presenting just two case studies. Pretty much, we have leveraged our assets to support healthcare facilities throughout our entire New York metro area. We probably cover most of the healthcare providers within our footprint at this point. What's common between all of them, they have multiple routes of high availability. They want 100% uptime. They need bandwidth flexibility, like Phil mentioned in the previous slide. They need connectivity to data centers. And in order to do all this, you need to have a dense fiber footprint. So what you see on the map here on the right side, I just highlighted yellow, obviously, is the dense infrastructure that we've deployed in the area. And blue are just highlighted routes that we could take advantage of, just some of them. Obviously, anything you see yellow, we could follow a path. But in this case study, they wanted 100% uptime. So what did that mean? If they had a data center that's up in Connecticut and they had to connect to a major hospital in New York City, we have the ability to provide diverse routing from end to end, not only in the physical outside plant coverage, but up to the customer facility, whether it's the data center or a hospital or a clinic. We work with the customer to identify a street level route that gets us up to the building. We leverage either a north and south or east or west POE as long as the right-of-ways approaching the building allow. And we carry that diversity all the way up to the customer prem and their IT room, as long as the real estate and building allows for that type of diversity as the inside plan. In addition to that, when you own the fiber and you have this flexibility with the fiber routing, especially in healthcare, latency is critical, as Phil mentioned in the last slide. When you're talking telemedicine, high resolution imaging, digital healthcare, latency is critical for these applications that they're trying to run. So having the fiber, having the dense footprint allows us to really pinpoint on routing and get within distances to meet the latency requirements that they're trying to achieve. And overall for healthcare is security of the information, right? We leverage our fiber infrastructure to build dark fiber networks where customers could place their own equipment on it. We leverage it to build private optical networks or Ethernet networks where it's dedicated fiber, dedicated hardware for them. So there's security level there where they're not leverage any shared infrastructure, whether it be our core or another. And finally, we have the ability with the architecture we've deployed in our core or on a private network to offer layer 1 encryption to our customers as well. So just quick overview here for healthcare. Again, 100% uptime. The fiber density allows us to achieve it in our footprint. Bandwidth flexibility, because it's fiber, because it's dedicated, we could support clinics from sub 1 gig services all the way up to hospitals and data centers to 100 gig plus type services. And security from latency and encryption perspective, we're able to achieve that in our solutions and leveraging our network. Next slide is a case study just on hyperscale computing. So on hyperscalers, they're predominantly, they prefer dark fiber solutions. The hyperscalers today support core infrastructure with a massive amount of data that traverses the network. Dark fiber is essentially what allows them to achieve that. It allows them to process the data. It allows them to adapt to new technologies easily and scale their networks. So what you're looking at here is on the map, again, the eastern end of Long Island, you can see the density of fiber we have. You do see a gap in the network in Queens. Phil highlighted in the previous slides that we are making a significant investment in Queens. Over 100 route miles of fiber are being built and to really densify that market and get ubiquitous fiber footprint from the eastern end of Long Island all the way into Queens, Brooklyn, New York City, New Jersey, and the rest of our footprint. So we'll have multiple routes to traverse. But in this scenario here, you'll see a blue line that I just kind of plotted coming from a landing station on the eastern end of Long Island, and we're taking it over to a facility in New Jersey. So in this scenario, we leverage our fiber footprint. We're able to customize the routing from east to west. We're able to avoid other providers. Now, obviously, customers go multiple providers, dual vendors, so we're able to work and get them to a diverse route from an existing provider they may have and really customize it. Now, with dark fiber, obviously, ILAs come into play when you got distances and loss levels that you're trying to meet with equipment. So it's probably a little difficult to see on this slide, but there's a bunch of blue dots and red dots along this slide. And what that is, those are head ends and facilities that we get to lean on for and offer ILA sites to our customers. It allows us to provide custom routing, provide some colo facilities for our customers to put equipment in those ILA sites and effectively be able to light the dark fiber we're providing them. So it's not, here's an 80, 90, or 100 kilometer dark fiber span and figure it out. It's, here's an 80, 90, 100 kilometer dark fiber span. Let's understand the equipment you're trying to light the network with, and let us work a solution on leveraging our head ends to provide space power to let you achieve that network, get it up and running for you. So again, it's the density in the network, it's the customization and allowing the scalability for the hyperscalers. Those are pretty much the two case studies that we're presenting here today. And with that, I am going to push it to the last slide and hand it over back to Phil Olivero.
All right. Thank you, Moss. So as we said, we try to keep this to 20, 25 minutes and a few minutes for questions here. So, just to summarize, as we mentioned, Lightpath has one of the most extensive and dense fiber networks in our geographies. And we're constantly working to extend and expand that network so we can make more services available in more places, more quickly, and with more fiber routing options for our customers. So So that's the main message. We'll turn it to our Q&A inbox and see what we have in there. All right, so we have a question here. First one. All right, Massimo, this one's for you. I think it's a pretty easy one. How do I've got all this fiber here. How does a customer know that they're served by Lightpath?
Phil, you froze on that one. Could you repeat the question, please?
No problem. Sorry. How do I know if my locations are served by Lightpath?
So our infrastructure, we have multiple tools that are out there that are available to our customers. The common ones are connected to fiber locator. Those are the common tools. If you have access to those, you could go in, you could plot your building on it, your location, and you'll either see if it's serviced by Lightpath fiber, or it could be near net or off net, depending on how we categorize it, right? But it gives you a sense of where your location sits within our footprint. And then the other way is also, reach out to your sales rep. If you reach out to your sales rep and provide them a list of locations or a single location, they'll get back to you with maps and details on if it's on net, off net, or near net, and what it would take to bring you on net if it's not.
Perfect. Thank you, Mas. Hey, since you're on a roll, I'll give you one more here, and I see a couple other ones that I'm going to take. But the second one, if you can hear me, hopefully, is can you and do you provide fiber maps if needed, showing exactly where our circuits go? We talked about people or customers needing to know exactly and have demanding needs as it relates to latency or diversity. So do we provide fiber maps if needed?
Absolutely. So if you look at the case study for the hyperscaler, I showed a route map that came from the eastern end of Long Island over through New York City and New Jersey. Again, it is a Google Earth file, whatever format customers are asking. We will show fiber maps. We get down to the street level, so you're able to see what your circuit and where your circuit is traversing in the plant. We do it for dark fiber networks. We do it for wavelength services, whether it's a private wavelength or a shared wavelength system. And for Ethernet, it gets a little difficult when you hit the MPLS network. It's obviously you can't route the core infrastructure, but we can show from our aggregation or hop-on point over to the customer prem. We will be able to show route maps down to the street level.
All right. Thanks, Mas. I got a couple other ones here. This one I sort of covered, but I'll talk to just the projected capacity. But what is the current and projected optical transport bandwidth capacity of fiber? So I mentioned again earlier that our state-of-the-art system that we currently are using, again, is the highest in the industry, state-of-the-art. So 42 wavelengths of 800 gig on the line side, i.e. our side. So 33.6 terabits per second is again, what you'll see as the highest in the industry. Facing customers in terms of what client side, as we say, interfaces are available. I mean, right now the industry is standardized on up to 400 gig E. So that's what you'll typically see on the client side. And in terms of, so that's the current optical transport bandwidth capacity. So just loads of capacity. But 5 years ago, state of the art was 8 terabits per second. And it's amazing that typically 3 to 5 years, you're seeing at least a doubling of the capacity being carried on an optical pair of fibers for transmit and receive. So again, just the great thing about fiber is there's really not a better medium out there to carry large amounts of data. And so, again, we have an all-fiber network, specifically for that reason, to make sure we can handle demanding customer needs. Let's see, I got one other one here, and we're getting to 12:30, so maybe this might be the last one here. I'll take a look and see just a sec. I'll look at one more. But anyway, one more after this one. What new areas are you looking to expand to? So I'll take this one, Mas. Boy, I wish this question was asked in about 30 days, because we are actively, and Mas especially from a fiber perspective, is actively working on a new market. And maybe I'll back up a step. We kind of look at our expansions in sort of 3 ways. It's extensions and, right off of our network. And we let our sales folks, we have programs for them to extend our network. And they do that without having a lot of, or really any approvals necessary, up to certain limits. So that's like, near net extensions, basically. We have extensions, like I mentioned, or additions like the Mario Cuomo bridge crossing, or extensions to data centers that take a little bit more time, money, effort, and a little bit of assessment. And so we've got some of those going on, all throughout our network. I'll mention at least Connecticut has been a big area of focus, and so you'll see more in the Connecticut area. But lastly, the third type of extension we do is new markets. And we talked about Boston, brand new market, not extending off existing network per se. And that's the one that I said, give us another 30 days and there'll be some exciting news. Roughly, some of the marketing people are going to shoot me in terms of what the exact time is that we'll release this info. But suffice to say, we're actively working on a brand new market. So stay tuned for that one. And hopefully I didn't cut out on any of that. So let's see. So that's where you build in other markets. Let's see. Just a administrative issue. I think some folks didn't get some of the lunch vouchers. I think Kaylee and our marketing team, I'm sure we'll be able to. Hopefully, if folks didn't get them and should have, we'll allow you to enjoy a lunch there. And of course, some don't qualify. I think it was the first X number that were going to be eligible for that. So anyway, let's see. Any other ones? So before we wrap it up, I think that's most of them. I think that probably suffices. And we're at 12:33. So I think with that, Moss, unless you had anything else to add?
No, Phil, I'm good.
All right. I definitely appreciate all of you taking the time to join us here. I think we set a record in terms of the number of audience members that attended. So definitely appreciate you taking the time in all your busy schedules. Thanks for joining the Lightpath Lunch and Learn, and look forward to talking to hopefully some of you in the future. Bye for now.